Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. This one is an entitled People Pro Revenge story. My family has owned a small farm just outside of town for over 50 years now. My grandparents bought the land back in the 1960s and built up the farm from scratch. They worked incredibly hard to clear the land, build the barn and farmhouse, acquire livestock and plant crops. The blood, sweat, and tears they poured into this place allowed them to carve out a humble living as dairy farmers. When my parents took over the farm, they expanded operations by adding a small produce stand out by the main road. This allowed us to sell directly to customers and supplement our dairy income. I have vivid memories of spending weekends in that little stand, arranged with baskets of fresh corn, tomatoes, squash, and other veggies. Interacting with customers as a kid is what made me fall in love with farming. So naturally, when my parents retired 5 years ago, I was thrilled to take up the reins. My wife and I moved into the old farmhouse with our young kids, ready to carry on the legacy. The first few years were full of challenges as we navigated the learning curve, but it's been immensely rewarding. As the fourth generation to live here, I feel a tremendous duty to honor my family's history on this land. Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, the peaceful atmosphere of the farm has been disrupted. A fancy new housing development sprang up on the far side of our property. I didn't think much of it at first, but then the Homeowners Association decided to extend their reach and try to impose their rules on us. Let me explain how this whole mess started. One day, I returned home from the farmer's market to find a strange letter in my mailbox. It was from the Homeowner Association Board addressed to the occupants of my farm. The letter stated that we owed $5,000 in unpaid homeowner association dues, dating back to the inception of the development 2 years ago. I was thoroughly confused. Why did they think we owed homeowner association fees when we didn't even live in their community? I had no idea what they were talking about, so I decided to just ignore the letter. Maybe it was sent by mistake. A few weeks later, I got another letter, this time with a more threatening tone. It claimed we were delinquent on the fees and that they would pursue legal action if we didn't pay up. At that point, I realized this was more serious. I called the Homeowner Association Board president to get to the bottom of things. She informed me in no uncertain terms that our farm fell under the jurisdiction of the Homeowner Association, so we were obligated to pay fees like every other homeowner. I politely explained that we were not members, nor did we have any desire to join the Homeowner Association. Our family predated the development by decades. Besides, nothing in our deed mentioned an homeowner association. The president just huffed and told me it didn't matter. She said the development's declaration applied to all surrounding properties within a 2-mile radius. I pointed out that only referred to properties built after the homeowner association was formed. Our farm should be exempt. I might as well have been talking to a brick wall. This woman refused to listen to reason. She said I had 30 days to pay the $5,000 before further action would be taken. I told her we had no intention of paying since we weren't homeowner association members, but she just hung up on me. At that point, I decided to get legal advice to protect ourselves against the homeowner association. I sat down with a real estate attorney and explained the entire ridiculous situation. She reviewed our deed and title history. Just as I suspected, there was absolutely no mention of an homeowner association anywhere. Our property was fully detached from the development. The attorney drafted a strongly worded letter to the Homeowner Association Board, stating they had no legal right to impose rules or fees on our farm. She said we were prepared to fight them if necessary. I hoped that would make them back off. But a week later, I received a notice that a lien had been placed on our farm due to unpaid assessments. I couldn't believe it had escalated so far. The attorney assured me not to worry. The lien was bogus and unenforceable. She would file paperwork to nullify it. Apparently, that scared the Homeowner Association Board enough to temporarily retreat. For the next 6 months, they left us alone. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but they returned with a vengeance. One morning I was out tending the cows when a sheriff's deputy pulled up our long dirt driveway, lights flashing. My heart dropped, wondering what on earth this could be about. The deputy informed me that the homeowner association was foreclosing on our farm and I was being evicted immediately. They had actually gone to court behind our backs and brought a civil claim to seize our property. I was speechless and seeing red. I demanded to see any paperwork while explaining this was our family farm, not some random piece of land. The deputy was very apologetic and just said he had to follow orders. He gave me the court documents and said I'd need to provide proof of our ownership to stop the foreclosure process. Luckily, I had all those records handy. I retrieved our original deed and title, highlighting the fact that our ownership dated back 50 years with no homeowner association encumbrances. The deputy looked it over and radioed back to his superiors. After some back and forth, he said the foreclosure was clearly a mistake and shouldn't have proceeded. He left soon after with profuse apologies. Though I was relieved, I was absolutely livid. This nonsensical homeowner association had illegally tried to steal our multi-generational farm out from under us, all because of their greed and complete disregard for property laws. I'd had enough of their harassment and intimidation tactics. It was time to send them a clear message. This ended now. My attorney filed a lawsuit against the Homeowner Association Board for unlawful foreclosure practices and emotional distress. I provided her with every shred of documentation proving our status as a non-member. We also subpoenaed homeowner association records, showing they deliberately concealed our appeals to be exempt from their rules. The homeowner association president had the audacity to claim in court that I refused to cooperate as a homeowner. What a joke. The judge saw right through her lies once presented with all the evidence. He didn't take long to issue a ruling completely in our favor. The homeowner association was ordered to rescind their lien, pay our legal fees and additional damages for the reckless foreclosure attempt. Each board member also received hefty fines for their deliberate misconduct. But the best part, the judge permanently banned the homeowner association from harassing us or claiming any authority over our property now and in the future. Justice was served. After over 2 stressful years, the arrogant homeowner association was put in their place. We finally had the peace and quiet we were owed all along. My family celebrated the victory, gratefully reflecting on our ancestors who would be proud we protected their legacy on our land. This entire scandal only proved to me that homeowner associations wield way too much power. Our rights as longtime property owners should never have been steamrolled like that. I'm just thankful we had the proper legal resources to stand and fight. Otherwise, we could have lost everything. My attorney told me we actually helped other neighborhoods by setting a precedent to curb homeowner association overreach. She said several others came forward with similar stories after hearing about our court win. It felt good knowing our ordeal made an impact beyond just our own farm. The days are now back to blissful normalcy. I'm able to focus on the fields and livestock without distraction. The farmhouse porch looks out on acres of corn and grazing cattle, not the pretenses of some artificial community. That view represents what truly matters: faith, dedication, and integrity passed down through generations, something those arrogant homeowner association board members will never understand. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My name is Jake, and I used to work in private security. Not just any private security, though. I was part of an elite team that protected some of the wealthiest communities in the city. We're talking gated mansions and penthouses where the parking garage held more Bentleys than a luxury car dealership. In neighborhoods like that, the residents can be a real pain in the ass. Entitled businessmen, pretentious housewives, and rich kids who think they own the world. Our boss, a former cop, warned us to expect complaints, frivolous accusations from bored socialites looking to stir up drama. "Be nice, but don't take any crap," he'd say. There was one luxury high-rise, the Wellington, that seemed to attract more than its fair share of troublemakers. The on-site manager there, Sandra, was constantly fielding noise complaints and neighbor disputes. There was one couple in particular, the McKinleys in Unit 5A, who called our emergency line non-stop. Darren and Amber McKinley would phone it in for every perceived slight. Footsteps upstairs, the smell of cooking from next door, a dog peeing on the balcony above them. We dutifully responded each time, but never found evidence to back up their claims. Eventually, the McKinleys changed tactics and began targeting the couple living above them, Ming and John Wu, with racist remarks. "Those Asians don't know how to be considerate neighbors," they would say. "Why can't they cook normal food?" As offensive as their comments were, they didn't violate any condo bylaws. The best I could do was document their exact words in our incident reports, hoping it might be useful down the line. I asked Sandra if there was any way to penalize them for the harassment, but she said that without a formal complaint from the victims, her hands were tied. So I started racking my brain on how I could catch the McKinleys red-handed. A month later, the opportunity presented itself. The Woos informed me they'd be traveling overseas to China for 2 weeks. They wanted me to periodically check on their unit while they were gone, just to make sure no one tried to break in. Even better, they agreed not to tell any of their neighbors about their trip. I gathered my team of officers that night and hatched a plan. For the next 2 weeks, we would respond to every single call from the McKinleys as if it were an emergency. I instructed my guards to transcribe their complaints verbatim, especially any racist language, no matter how minor. Over the next 14 days, the McKinleys called us 18 times to gripe about excessive noise coming from the Woos' apartment upstairs. We cataloged each fabricated grievance. When the Woos returned, I had a damning stack of documented lies. Sandra agreed it was time to evict the McKinleys. In cases like this, the three of us, tenant, manager, and security, would sit down together while I presented the evidence. The accused then had a chance to explain themselves before Sandra passed judgment. Needless to say, the McKinleys were outraged when they received notice of their eviction hearing. At the meeting, Darren immediately protested my presence with a firearm. I politely deflected his complaint, and Sandra insisted we proceed. One by one, I read the incident reports aloud, all 18 of them. After each one, I asked the McKinleys if they'd like to claim anything was false. Every time they denied making the racist comments, but admitted the other noise complaints were lies. By the 7th report, Amber realized they'd been trapped. "Why are you dragging this out?" she demanded. I coolly reminded her that we would continue until I finished presenting the facts. When I reached the end, I revealed that the Woos had been abroad during all 18 false reports. The McKinleys turned beet red when confronted with proof of their deception. They accused me and Sandra of siding with immigrant tenants over respectable Americans like themselves. That was the last straw for Sandra. She immediately found them guilty and notified them they had 2 weeks to vacate the property. I happily called the Woos afterward to let them know they wouldn't be bothered by the McKinleys' harassment any longer. The couple was relieved that justice had finally been served. As security officers, we were often constrained by rules and regulations, so it felt good to truly help those tenants in need, even if it meant getting creative. The McKinleys may have had money and influence, but their bigotry and dishonesty made them the poorest people I'd ever met. The next one is, am I the whole story? I've lived in my house for over 10 years now, and it's always been pretty peaceful on our little cul-de-sac. That all changed about a year ago when a new neighbor, Jessica, moved in next door. Jessica is a single mom with 2 kids and she doesn't have a driveway, so she has to park on the street. I, on the other hand, do have a nice big driveway that can easily fit 2 cars. At first, it didn't bother me too much when Jessica would park in front of my driveway. I'd just park on the street those few times or knock on her door and politely ask her to move her car. She was always apologetic about it and would repark right away. But then a few months ago, Jessica started doing it all the time. Like multiple times a week, I'd come home from work or be leaving in the morning and her big SUV would be smack dab in front of my driveway. The first couple times I went over and asked her to move it. The next few times I left passive-aggressive notes on her windshield, but she just kept doing it. One day I'd had enough. I marched over to her door and told Jessica she needed to stop blocking my driveway or else I would call the city and have her ticketed. Well, she did not take kindly to my threat. Jessica blew up at me, saying I didn't own the street parking, and she had just as much right to it as I did. Then she slammed the door in my face. Things only got worse after that. It seemed like Jessica was intentionally blocking my driveway at every chance just to spite me. My husband Jack tried to be the voice of reason, saying we should just let it go. But I had reached my boiling point, so one morning when I found Jessica's SUV taking up my driveway yet again, I saw red. I immediately called the police department's non-emergency line, and within an hour, a tow truck came and hauled her SUV away. Later that day, Jessica showed up on my doorstep screaming and yelling about how I was a jerk for having her car towed, and now she couldn't get to work and would probably lose her job. I have to admit, a tiny pang of guilt flickered in me for a second, but I hardened my resolve, said, "You shouldn't have blocked my driveway then," and closed the door. My husband said I took things too far and we should pay the impound fee to get Jessica's car back. But I absolutely refused. She brought this on herself by being so stubborn. Well, a few days later I ran into Jessica at the mailbox and she tearfully told me she did in fact lose her job because of missing work, and that the impound place was charging crazy fees and she couldn't afford to get her car back. I'm second-guessing myself now. Maybe I should have been the bigger person and just kept letting her block my driveway, or tried talking to her again instead of escalating things. Jack says I was totally out of line and owes Jessica an apology and money to get her car back. But I still feel justified in my actions. So who's in the wrong here? Did I take things too far, or was Jessica getting what she deserved? I just don't know anymore. Comment 1. You are the a-hole. I get that having your driveway blocked all the time was annoying, but calling to get her car towed right away was way too harsh. She's a single mom struggling to get by, and you knew she needed that car for work. You easily could have left a note saying you'd have it towed next time if she didn't stop. Jumping right to towing without warning makes YTA. Have some empathy. Comments 2. Everyone sucks here. You both handled this badly. She shouldn't have kept blocking your driveway after you asked her to stop, but you escalated things way too quickly by having her car towed without warning, knowing she needed it for work. You both let a parking dispute get way out of hand. You should split the impound fee since you both suck here. Next time be the bigger person and try to work it out instead of going nuclear. Comments 2. Not the a-hole. She had fair warning you would tow if she kept blocking your driveway. It's not your problem she lost her job. She brought that on herself with her entitled behavior. Why should you pay the impound fee when she was blatantly breaking the rules and ignoring your polite requests? Stand your ground, OP. She needs to take responsibility for her own actions instead of wrongfully blaming you. Don't let these comments guilt trip you. Update. I wanted to provide an update on my driveway dilemma with my neighbor Jessica. After getting a lot of divided feedback on my original post, I did some soul searching. While I was still annoyed by Jessica's entitled behavior, I realized I may have jumped the gun by having her car towed without a final warning. She's a single mom struggling to make ends meet, and losing her job due to the towing fees has put her in a terrible situation. I approached Jessica and offered to pay the entire impound fee to get her car back. At first she was reluctant to accept my help after how things went down, but eventually she agreed and got her car back. I reiterated that she needed to stop blocking my driveway, but that if she was ever in a bind, she should come talk to me and I would try to work with her. We were able to bury the hatchet. The city actually has clear rules on towing cars that are blocking driveways, which I didn't fully understand before. The property owner must provide a written warning first and call the police again if the car continues blocking access. So the tow truck driver was also partially in the wrong for taking her car without proper procedures being followed. Jessica was able to explain the situation to her former employer, and they agreed to give her job back once she got her car back. So in the end, things worked out okay. We're back on friendly neighbor terms again. I definitely learned a lesson in trying to look at the full context before reacting, and to extend an olive branch even when someone is in the wrong. Trying to make a bad situation better usually works out for everyone. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.